China is going to become a space power. This is what the country's President Xi Jinping says. To explore the vast cosmos, develop the space industry, and build China into a space power is our eternal dream. China's advancements in spaceflight began in 1964, launching its first biological experiment, including 8 white mice, into space. Especially since 2016, the space industry in China has made rapid and innovative progress. This is Spaces. The Asian country stands out with its Moon and Mars plans. In 2007, China's first lunar probe Chang'e-1 blasted off from the Xichang Satellite Launch Center. It was an unmanned lunar orbiting spacecraft as part of the country's lunar exploration program. This is the first image of the spacecraft. In 2008, Xi Jinping became the first Chinese astronaut to walk in space. China did not stop there, as it launched its robotic Chang'e-3 probe to land on the lunar surface with the aim of deploying the U2 rover. This mission happened in 2013. In 2019, Chang'e-4 became the first spacecraft to make a soft landing on the Moon's far side. This mission released the U2 rover. According to the latest news, the rover is still alive. After a year, Chang'e-5 returned to Earth with the lunar samples. But why is China so interested in the Moon? As scientists in the country learn and develop technologies by attempting to send missions to the Moon, the real reason could be the rich resources above and below the ground. A NASA paper titled Significant Lunar Minerals indicates what kind of resources the Moon contains. The Earth is short of these resources. So the Moon, as a tremendous energy supplier, could be a base for Chinese astronauts to travel to the Red Planet. Beijing also seeks ways to demonstrate its space capacity as well as be an icon of the 21st century. According to a report, China economically, diplomatically, and militarily could overtake the United States in space by 2045. China is already conducting several giant space-related projects. Landing on Mars after reaching the Moon is significant progress for the country in an era when SpaceX founder Elon Musk plans to settle 1 million people on the Red Planet by 2050. Tianwen-1 mission to Mars was launched in 2020. This mission includes an orbiter and a rover. They entered Mars orbit in 2021. These images are from Tianwen-1 mission. A radar is among the rover's science instruments that could detect potential water beneath the surface, which could mean life. The rover, called Jerome, can directly communicate with Earth. It can also use Tianwen-1 orbiter for high-speed data relay. The mission includes various kinds of scientific instruments to study Mars climate and geology. The rover is also capable of investigating the chemical signatures of Martian rocks. Radio waves are shooted into the surface to measure reflection times. In this way, scientists here on Earth piece them together to create 3D maps of what lies beneath. China's U2 rover used radar on the far side of the Moon to reveal 3 distinct layers extending 40 meters beneath the surface. Scientists tested a rover-sized radar in China's Kaidan Basin, a cold, desert region like Mars. They were able to detect underground water pockets of water. On Earth, these pockets can host thriving microbial communities. Detecting them on Mars would be an important step in our search for life on other worlds. Another big project in space by China is this space station called Tiangong. Tiangong means Heavenly Palace in Mandarin. It weighs nearly 100 tons. That is barely more than the American Skylab that launched in 1973. And it is less than the mere space station that the Soviet Union began assembling in space in 1986. Shenzhou 15 mission launched last year carried 3 Chinese astronauts to the Tiangong space station. China has plans for its space station to be occupied continuously by at least 3 astronauts. That will expand to 6 astronauts during their week-long overlap every 6 months. The station is 55 meters long and consists of 3 modules. 6 astronauts can live in the core module, and the remaining 2 modules are for experiments. Different kinds of activities and experiments outside the station are doable thanks to an external robotic arm. In addition, there are 3 cocking ports for resupplying vehicles and manned spacecraft. China's space station is slated to stay in orbit for 15 years. During the mission, science experiments will be conducted. Astronauts aboard the Tiangong will mainly focus on research on life in space, about the growth and development of different types of plants, animals, and microorganisms. More than 1,000 experiments are planned for the next 10 years. While the space station is strictly Chinese managed, the country is open to collaborating. So far, 9 projects from 17 countries have been selected. In December 2023, China is planning to launch a new space telescope called tianwen. This telescope will map stars and supermassive black holes, among other projects, with a resolution about the same as the Hubble Space Telescope, but with a wider view. The telescope will periodically dock with the station for maintenance. China has plans to launch multiple missions to Mars and nearby comets and asteroids with the goal of bringing samples back to Earth. Perhaps most notably, China has announced plans to build a joint moon base with Russia. What China does in space is more than what I have already told you above. China's space agency has conducted over 450 launches with its Long March rocket family. The Long March is China's primary expendable launch system cluster. Developing reusable rocket technology in China has become even more important following considerable international criticism of its Long March 5B rockets. China allowed massive core boosters from these rockets to fall out of control to Earth while sending each of the 3 modules of the Tiangong space station into orbit. One caused damage during a test flight in 2020 when it fell in West Africa, but none of the rocket stages have hurt or killed anyone so far. At least one more launch of the rocket is planned in 2023 when the tianwen telescope goes into orbit. Chinese officials say they don't just want to avoid uncontrolled re-entry, but to reuse rockets. As the world's first orbital-class reusable rocket, Falcon 9 produced by SpaceX is a 2-stage rocket. It safely transports people and sends payloads into Earth orbit and beyond. Reusability allows refitting the most expensive parts of the rocket, which in turn drives down the cost of space access. Now, China plans to revamp a highly successful, 30-year-old Long March rocket model to adapt to the trend towards reusability in the launch sector. This is Long March 1st. And this is Long March 11th. It can carry 700 kilograms to low Earth orbit. This rocket is the only solid propellant rocket in the Long March series. Solid rockets do not need separate tanks for propellant and oxidizer and are simpler and cheaper to design. Once ignited, they burn to completion. The 21-meter-tall rocket had its first flight in 2015. The Long March 11th is mainly for launching small satellites into the sun-synchronous orbit.